just going to hit record right now. That does mean that the chats also get recorded. So if you are uncomfortable with that, just feel free to send us an email at admissions.ischool@utoronto.ca, and we'll be happy to answer your questions at that point. The first thing I would like to do before I introduce our wonderful dean, oops, there we go, okay, is just acknowledge our traditional land. So we do wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So it is my absolute pleasure now to introduce you to our Dean of the Faculty of Information, Professor Wendy Duff.
Thank you, Andrea, very much. And I want to welcome you all. It's interesting, the picture that is shown up on the screen is actually in the Inform. And of course, the other picture that's the live picture is in a den in the house that I'm in Ottawa. So quite a difference than previous orientations in previous years. But what is the same is that today we're going to hear a lot about our faculty and the many very exciting areas of concentrations that we have. One of the things that I think about our faculty, you know, is that it is I for information, but it's also I for innovation, and I for interdisciplinarity, and I for I don't know how many other I's there are. I'm sure Andrea would be better at picking out all those I's. So whether you're here because you're interested in our archives program, our library and information science program, perhaps you're more interested in the critical information policy, or the culture and technology, information systems, knowledge management, UXD. I'm having problems with audio. Somebody else is having problems with audio. Or of course our very latest human-centered data science. But you know, all of those programs have certain areas that are very common across. We come together, we come from very diverse backgrounds. Some of you will want to go into human-centered data science because you come from a stats background, but others may come from a historical background or English, or that very wide variety. Perhaps you've already had a profession and now you want to try something new and different. And if this ever been a year to try something new and different, this is certainly the year. What it underlines everything, of course, is both our values and a very dedicated faculty. But at the heart of our faculty, and that's the big F faculty, is that we're a community that cares, and a community that works together and plays together. And you heard from our amazing Miss just before, I caught the end of it, and they enrich our students, enrich the faculty in so many, many different ways. But I'm not going to take much longer. I'm going to hand it back to Andrea, and she's going to have all the concentration leads talking about the different concentrations and what you find. And so I'm sure you're far more interested in hearing about our programs and getting your questions answered than hearing from me. So I'm going to, further ado though, I do want to say welcome very, very much. And I hope that I'll be able to welcome you in September in the Bissell building, which is our home. Okay, thanks, Andrea.
Thank you very much. Okay, so up we have, I'd like to introduce you to Professor Foscarini, who is going to provide a general program overview of the Masters of Information program.
So hello, hi everyone, welcome. I hope you can hear me right. So I am Fiorella Foscarini. I teach in the Archives and Records Management concentration, and I am the director of the MI program. I would like to start with the big question. So what is the Faculty of Information? As you may know, defining information is one of the toughest things that people may endeavor to do. Why? Because information is everywhere. Information is really a concept that can only be understood if you look at it from multiple perspectives. That's why in our faculty, we combine all these multiple perspectives, and you may decide to focus just on one angle, specific types of information products or processes, certain technologies that we use to create and manage information, or you may want to take the more holistic and critical perspective, or all of these things together. So we have a very flexible and interdisciplinary program, as the Dean just said, with a diversity of specializations and understandings of this complex thing that is information. So you will hear from my colleagues what each concentration takes as a definition or an idea of information, and you will hear what we do with that. And based on your interest and also on your curiosity to look for different views, ideas that you never explored before around the issue of information, then you will be able to build the program that suits you. I will show you in the next slide. I think it's here. Yes, you will see. Now you see a kind of a complex labyrinth of boxes with different pathways and options. I'm not going into detail in all this, but what I want to tell you is that, as you can see, we have 8 different concentrations, right? It's here. These are the concentrations. You usually choose 1 or 2, and you can combine these also with collaborative programs. So we have several partnerships with different units. And so basically, if you choose a collaborative program, because I've seen that there is a question about that, you basically take some of your electives in this specialization, right? So you focus in a more narrow and specialized way on one subject area that interests you, and you see how different these specializations are. Exactly because information is everywhere, right, and can mean many different things. You can also combine the MI program with the MMST program, with the museum studies program. We call this combined degree program that we offer as a program that lasts 3 years instead of the 2 usual years for one program only. What else do I want to tell you? That you can choose a thesis option if you have a research idea, something that stimulates your imagination that you would like to explore in depth. You will also have the opportunity to choose this option. And we also have a co-op program. Where is it mentioned? Somewhere here. And it's a very much very much in demand. So many students want to do the co-op program because it allows you to work while studying and to experience different workplaces and put in practice what you learn in your classes. So it's very popular and it's exciting even in an online environment. Of course, we all hope that when you join us in the fall, we will be teaching in person. And so the co-op will hopefully take place in a real workplace, but nobody can predict the future. I personally am very optimistic, but one other thing that makes me optimistic is that We have now behind us a term, the fall term, that was all online, all remote delivery of our courses, and it went pretty well. Of course, we miss the interaction with real human beings, and you, of course, as students, the students in our classes missed this very important aspect, the social aspect of being at a university. But we had very successful courses with this weird delivery. So we are still experimenting asynchronous, synchronous modalities of teaching, but there are some advantages, and maybe some of my colleagues will tell you what these advantages are. I I enjoyed my courses online. It was a very different experience. I'm happy if we go back to in-person teaching soon, but it wasn't too bad. So that's to tell you that whatever will happen, we will have fun together. Great, so that's all for me, and I pass the microphone back to Andrea. Thank you.
Great,
Bye.
Thank you very much. Perfect. All right, up next, I'd like to present Professor Sertam, who's going to talk about the archives and records management concentration.
Hi. Thanks very much. Thank you, Fiorella, too. So interesting to hear how everyone's adapting to online learning. I think even if we end up back in the classroom, we're coming back having learned new things about our courses and ways of approaching our courses, because we've been pushed to think about them in new ways and offer them in new ways. So I'll be curious to see how people bring those lessons back into the classroom as well. So I have 5 minutes of your time to talk about the archives and records management concentration. And if you are interested in hearing more, I'll be in the breakout room afterwards as well to give you more details about the concentration. But the gist of it is that the ARM concentration really focuses on the study of records. That's the piece that brings together the archives and the records management side of things. And we look at how records matter to people, why they matter to people, why they matter to communities, but also to organizations, and then how we need to manage them in our lives, in our workplaces now, and then how we manage them into the future. What are we going to keep? What are we going to remember? So by records, I'm talking about, like Fiorella was saying about information, records are everywhere. Records are all the ways that we remember and inscribe evidence, whether that's government case files or your family's photo albums or oral history or your banking records, Twitter accounts and tweets or emails. So in the ARM concentration, we study how we manage records while they're being kept by their creators. So in workplaces and offices and government and organizations. So that's the records management side of things. And then on the archival side, we're deciding what from all of the information that's created we're actually going to keep permanently in archives. What are we going to remember? And along with that comes, what are we forgetting? And then once we make that decision, we're thinking about how we bring that material into archival repositories, how we arrange it, organize it, how we describe it so that it makes sense to people, how we preserve it so that it lasts, and then how we make that available to broader and broader publics. So our graduates end up typically working as records managers or as archivists for government agencies or banks, other corporations, law offices, nonprofits, universities and colleges, libraries, museums, galleries, and community organizations. Everyone creates records and needs to manage them. Others work in really specific areas. So for example, as freedom of information officers or as privacy analysts. And that's because our graduates graduate with a really deep knowledge of records, their structure, how to understand their context and their requirements. So in our current climate, which is complicated and fraught and quite difficult. It includes a global pandemic. It includes political instability across the globe, including south of the border at the moment. Increased pressure as well in Canada on our institutions to really reckon with histories and legacies of racism, of colonialism, and exclusion. More and more, we're seeing the importance of records work and archival work. So I just wanted to highlight a couple examples. Records managers are assisting people right now as they're working from home to make sure they can still access the information that they need in order to do their jobs so that businesses and organizations and government can continue to operate. And also to ensure that those records are going to continue to be able to be findable and well organized and secure within the organization, even though they're being accessed from home. At the same time, we have archivists working away from their physical collections that they're used to being so close with and working with. So they're spending this time ensuring that there's increased digital access to their analog holdings and starting to think more and more about how to better acquire digitally born records as well, how we're creating records now. Archivists are also already thinking about how we're going to remember this very historical moment in time in the future. So there was actually just an article in the National Post featuring a number of our alum and my archival colleagues and the work that they're doing in archives, launching these COVID collecting projects where they're asking people to submit stories and records and memories already of their experience during this time. And then at the same time as capturing how ordinary people are experiencing this time, they're also ensuring that we're going to remember what governments do, the decisions that they make, what organizations are doing during this time, so we can learn from the strengths and limitations of those decisions and hold organizations and government to account as well for those decisions. So in the ARM concentration, the core courses are going to teach you the theories and the methods behind all of the work that's done to manage records, to bring them in, to arrange and describe them. And then past those core required courses, you get to bring together your own kind of roster of courses based on your particular interests. So we have electives in things like community archiving, copyright, audiovisual material, working with digital records, access, advocacy, and outreach. So there's a wide range of kind of angles that you can take, again, even within ARM. And then beyond that, you can build more electives that are speaking to your own goals and interests. So maybe you want to look more into information architecture, or you're interested in the preservation of research data and you want to take some courses on data, or you're interested in special collections and you want to take some rare book librarianship courses. So that's, again, the great thing about that interdisciplinarity of the faculty is that you can work together to piece or curate basically your own set of courses that are going to get you where you're going. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about ARM for my little blurb. But again, I'm happy to chat in the breakout room after more about the details of the concentration. So I'll hand it back to Andrea, I guess.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, next we have Professor Battershill to talk about culture and technology concentration.
Hello, everybody. Am I good for sound?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to see you all today, sort of. I can only see the slides really, but it's nice to welcome you here. And I'm glad to talk to you today about the culture and technology concentration, which we call around here CNT. So the culture and technology concentration is focused on supporting students in developing a better understanding of the many ways in which major scientific and technological advances impact upon sociocultural practices, values, and ideologies. Affiliated with the McLuhan program in culture and technology, CNT draws on the university's historical Toronto school tradition, established by McLuhan, Innes, and Franklin, while building a dynamic, comprehensive, multi-methodological, and balanced approach to examining the ever-evolving relationships between technology and culture. And of course, we were talking a little bit about the relationship between ARMS and the pandemic and the different ways that we're thinking about archives. Similarly, the relationships between culture and technology have been significantly renegotiated throughout this period of the pandemic. So I think there's a lot for us to discuss in this concentration that's new as a result of our sort of move of everything into a technological space, including Zoom. Students who specialize in CNT become specialists in identifying, interpreting, explaining, and at times shaping the sociocultural impact of technologies. Through our concurrent and deeply interrelated development of technical, philosophical, and critical skills, our students gain an understanding of the multiple ways in which technologies reflect, influence, and enforce social, political, and cultural forces. Many of our courses incorporate hands-on, theoretically grounded interventions. So an example of that is the critical making course. And with technological artifacts and systems, from critical making to remixing media is another one of the core courses that you can take in CNT. So from that description, you might have inferred a little bit that that CNT is also a very short way of describing it, is that it's the sort of marrying of humanities disciplines with information studies. So we have a lot of humanities informed courses that kind of take an information studies approach to the humanities. CNT students explore a range of practical and big picture questions and issues relating to the relationships between technologies and cultures. They develop skills in the design, use, assessment, and evaluation of information systems and processes. And an example of a course where that sort of thing is examined is The Future of the Book, which is one of the courses in CNT. So thinking about ebooks, thinking about digital books, thinking about the role of the book in culture. To those of you here who are part of the CNT, who are interested in the CNT concentration, the skills that you'll learn in this concentration will enable you to take a leading role in guiding social discussions of both the opportunities and challenges afforded by new technologies and information processes. So a couple of examples of careers of our graduates and careers that you might consider coming out of the CNT concentration include working for a range of cultural institutions, media and tech companies, government and nonprofit organizations. The jobs can include communications specialists, media professionals, social media strategists, market researchers, technology analysts, and consultants. So there's a wide range of possibilities after you finish the CNT program. I'm more than happy to answer any further questions that you might have later in the session, or you can also reach me as the program liaison. Otherwise, we also have a recommended reading list for CNT. So if you wanted to get a sense of the program sort of via some of the critical readings that we recommend, I'm happy to provide that on request. So thanks, everybody. That's all from me.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I'm just going to skip on over to Professor St. Cyr, who's going to talk about the user experience design concentration.
Great. Let me put my video here. Yes, no? Okay, yes, great. Directly from my son's room and the Winnie the Pooh theme. Hi, everybody. It's very good to talk to you. I'm going to talk about the UXD concentration, which is one of our largest, in fact, if not the largest concentration in the program. And I want to start this by going through what the root of an information school is. At the root of the information school is information, people, and technology. So, and in UX, basically, we're all about trying to understand how people access information, often through technology, and make sure that this accessing of information through technology creates good, positive experiences as opposed to negative experiences. So I'm sure everybody has interacted with information systems in the past, whether it be your own phone, mobile device, your laptop, but also maybe more recently, all kinds of different sites and different information systems that have popped up during this pandemic around, curbside pickup, online grocery ordering. If you've noticed as well, if you still go do a little bit of essential shopping in person at times, I've definitely noticed that in some of the pharmacies or in some of the big box retail stores, the number of self-checkout counters have been increasing since March in order to take care of the throughput and put more people through checking out for their items faster. So all of these pieces of technologies are part of our life, and we interact with them, and we want to access information, but we want to access information in a way that is, of course, convenient for us, but it's also easy. So a good example of this is online grocery shopping, which has really, really taken off in the last 9 months. You see all kinds of different companies now offering services. Major grocery store chains have revamped a lot of their user interface. It's interesting because we have one of our graduates who graduated 2 years ago who works for Loblaw Digital, and which is a major grocery supplier chain in Canada. And I was just talking to her recently, and she was telling me how much iteration they are doing on their online ordering grocery systems. Like every 2 to 3 weeks, they add little things, they change the user interface, they listen to users' feedback, and they iterate on the process of ordering groceries online based on the comments and the feedback that they receive from customers. So in UX, in the Faculty of Information, this is really what we do. We learn how to create these digital systems, and we also learn the techniques and the theory to ensure that the systems we create increase or creates positive experience to our users. We use a human-centric design approach or user-centered design approach in which we put the user at the center of our decision-making. And we have 5 courses. In the first year, it's all about learning the fundamentals of user experience, the fundamentals of information architecture, fundamentals of user research, and also user interface design. Then some of our students go to co-op. Some of our students do a second concentration, depending on what options they wanna pick. And in the second year, we have our capstone course to conclude the concentration. We also have introduced quite a number of elective courses in the past few years. We have now our courses on leadership and influence in user experience. We have a course on accessibility and inclusive design. We have a course on usability testing. We have a course on virtual reality. We have a course on game UX and user research. So for those who want to go beyond the 5 courses that are offered in the faculty, there are a little bit more choices for UXD related type courses. Once you've passed, once you foundation, then you can go into a few more courses. One thing I also would like to point out just before finishing is the cross between UX and many other different concentration. So for example, in librarianship, there's often UX librarian positions that are offered in different library. Archivists are also looking at user experience design problems. They're accessing all kinds of databases, all kinds of different record management systems. Museum folks are also very very close to design thinking and user experience. The whole aspect of visitor planning in a museum, the experience of people visiting museum, the museum management collection systems, et cetera, et cetera. So if you are interested in some of our GLAM type of concentration, the gallery, the libraries, the archive, and the museum, we also have quite a few students who mix UX with some of these disciplines to give them some technical knowledge and also some design thinking sort of backbone and background in order to apply UXD principles in some of the GLAM disciplines. So I will see you in, I believe it's at around 1:50 in the UXD room or breakout room to talk about the courses, give a little bit more details about how the program and the concentration is structured, and talk about the co-op option in UXD, and also answer any questions you have. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Up next, we have Professor Becker, who's going to talk about the information systems and design concentration.
Hi everyone. Yes, so I'm currently the liaison for the information systems and design concentration, or short IS&D. So IS&D enables you to design information systems in a range of fields, whether it's corporate finance or government or healthcare, or whether it's startups in AI, big data, wearables, social media. In any of these and other contexts, if you want to shape how information technologies are designed in any of these sectors, you need to understand the technical aspects of IT and the context of organizations, communities, and individuals. So think of the idea of the smart city. To understand what's going on in a smart city, you have to understand the infrastructure, the algorithms, the devices, the data that are collected and how they're aggregated and analyzed. But you also need to understand the messy social and human side of the place, people's wants and needs and organizational drivers and incentives and goals and regulations and business models and communities. You need to understand systemic racism. You need to be mindful of existing inequalities across these communities. In ISND, the concentration provides you with concepts, methods, perspectives, and analytical tools to navigate the social and the technical sides of the design of information systems and to reconcile them. So we will teach you how IT systems work, databases, software architecture, programming, but most importantly, how to decide what goals those systems should meet and why. So ISND will teach you how to place information technology in a context, analyze its implications in that context, model how different technological choices address different concerns of your stakeholders, and make a business case for your recommendations for your decisions. And to do so based on a human-centered, socially conscious, ethical perspective. So there's probably no better place in Canada to study this, or even North America maybe. I know everyone might say this, but hear me out. First, almost all of the faculty who teach in ISND have a PhD in computer science, but our interests extend beyond computer science into its social context, design, and implication. So we know how these things work, and that matters, but we care more about what people and businesses need and why, and how information technology can help them. I think there's also hardly a better time to study this. And again, it's easy to say, but the thing is that software technology, AI, wearable devices, any of these things, they aren't going anywhere. The technology itself, the concrete elements of it are evolving very rapidly, but the central concerns about navigating the social and the technical remain crucially important and difficult. And the need for people who understand technology in its social context is larger than ever, it's only growing. So what are you going to do in those 2 years? You complete a set of courses that include technical and social foundations. You move increasingly to placing those foundations in a context. You study how information services, programming, and databases work. You learn to analyze and model organizational processes. You learn how to develop requirements and design high-level architectures of big data systems. You study how organizations use these systems to manage information and knowledge. And many of the courses involve team-based projects. So for example, one that I teach right now is called System Requirements and Architectural Design, that is organized around a team project that runs the whole term, for which you choose your own system to design. And some of those system designs were later taken on into hackathons and other projects. So when you graduate, your bridging of technical and social knowledge will be highly valued in a lot of different workplaces. You're well positioned to become a business analyst or a systems analyst or an information architect or a project lead for an IT systems design project, or work with big data in other capacities. Some of our graduates become chief information officers, or depending on how you combine this concentration, you can go in all sorts of directions. You can combine it with user experience, many do that, or with human-centered data science, which is also a popular combination. But you can also combine it with archives and records management, or you combine it with LIS or any of the other concentrations to bring these technical and socio-technical design skills into that context. And so you don't need to come in with programming skills or with an undergrad in computer science or any of these kind of technical qualifications, but you will work alongside people with those skills, and you can acquire and deepen many of these skills in the program. Yeah, thank you. And I'll be available in the breakout session later on for any questions.
Great, thank you. All right, next, I'd like to introduce you to Professor Furness, who's going to talk about the knowledge management and information management concentration.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay, Andrea? Can you hear me? Am I good?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Hi, everybody. It's always disorienting staring into a lens in my basement, but here we are. Welcome to our virtual KMIM talk. knowledge management and information management is very much concerned with information and knowledge use in the workplace. That's where we think about knowledge and information. In the workplace is where there's expertise being used. It's where knowledge gets created. It's where knowledge gets used. It's where decisions get made. And information and knowledge both support those activities, or perhaps sometimes fail to support those activities. To separate information and knowledge is actually very important in how we think. People talk about information overload all the time. That's fair. Never heard anyone say, I've got knowledge overload. And so right away, there should be pretty clear that these are very, very different things, but they complement each other. And learning about KMIM really is very, very much bound up in learning about how information becomes knowledge and how knowledge also sometimes becomes information. We need to define the difference between those two in order to talk about this concentration. We could spend hours doing that, days, weeks, maybe even months. But I'll say, just to plant the flag, and this is not ideal, but we could say that information is in the environment, like in documents, and that knowledge is in the head. That's problematic, but it'll, as I say, it'll do for now. So when we think about knowledge management, we're thinking about organizational culture. We're thinking about policy. We're thinking about how people do their work and how they see their work, which is bound up in issues of identity and company structure and a lot of different kinds of complex factors. When we think about information management, we're really thinking about how stuff is structured so you can get at it, thinking about that portal or thinking about that intranet. If you've ever worked in a large organization with shared files, you may have encountered the dreaded H drive, or it may have a different letter, the public drive where everyone puts their stuff and no one can find anything. That defines an information problem, an information management problem right there. But it's not enough to simply say, well, let's organize this in a way that's meaningful, because that does information management on its own. We also need to think about the knowledge side. What are people doing? What are they trying to get done? Some of the important questions that are very central to thinking about knowledge management and information management are things like, what happens when someone retires or leaves an organization and a lot of knowledge in their head walks out the door? There's good in that sometimes, but there's also a lot of bad in that too. How can an organization cope and stay resilient to be able to deal with that kind of change? What if people working in an organization don't share information effectively with each other? What if they hoard information? This is something we see. It's something that's actually very common. And the larger the organization, the more important this sort of problem can be. What does an organization do in order to scan or pay attention to what's going on in the external environment and bring in information internally when it's really important? And in a really big organization, one of the hardest problems is, how do we find the right expertise? A problem walks in the door, someone knows how to answer this. How do we connect problem with expertise? And that turns out to be very, very difficult. So knowledge management and information management as a concentration pairs very well with other concentrations. It's a small concentration on its own, but I think it is actually the biggest second concentration. It pairs extremely well with archives and records management. In fact, as I'll tell you in a moment, a couple of the required courses are in fact the same. But it also pairs very well with LIS, because knowledge management and information management in an organization is a little bit in some ways like being the librarian in a company. It pairs very well with UXD and with ISD, because both of those are concerned with creating tools. So if we're creating an intranet, if we're automating white-collar knowledge-related work, if we're automating these things, we actually really want to have an understanding of what are the information and knowledge factors. So people in those concentrations often take a KMIM course. I actually would say it pairs with just about everyone, but those are the ones that I think loom the largest. The courses that you're taking in this concentration, there's INF 1003, which is a basic technology literacy course. It's not about technology, but it's about it. It's my course, so I'm not biased, but it's fantastic. It's called Information System Services and Design. Then there is 1230, which is management in organizations. That's your MBA folded up into one convenient half course. And I say that only half jokingly. It's very, very useful. That's a KM-oriented course. There's also a course called Models and Platforms, which is also very related to KM. But there are two IM courses, and those are the ones that are actually shared with archives and records management, one of them being organizational records, which is 2175, and the other one being metadata, which is 2186, both of these being extremely useful courses. Almost by default, KMIM is also where, if you have an interest in health informatics, that ends up under the KMIM rubric. We don't do that much in health directly now, but it is possible for students to take one or more courses at the School of Public Health in health informatics, and I'm the contact person for that. As it also says on the slide, I'm also the contact person for co-op, so feel free to ask me co-op related questions when we do breakout rooms. I'll just close by saying, what do you do with this degree? Well, generally speaking, people who end up doing their master's in knowledge management and information management work for large organizations. That's typically where these problems and challenges are to be found. That has included Bell Canada, Deloitte, Capital One, the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, Manulife Financial, RBC, certainly Ontario Public Service, University Health Network, large organizations, and some of the job titles, at the top of the pyramid are things like Chief Knowledge Officer or Chief Information Officer, but you also have things like Knowledge Management Analyst, Prospect Researcher, a Research Analyst, an Evaluation Consultant, Digital Data Analyst, Data Quality Manager, Information Program Manager. There's a lot of knowledge services and information management roles out there. I always say to students, when you're looking for a job out of KMIM, you typically get hired for the IM side, but they love you, retain you, and value you for what you know on the KM side. Now, I could keep on going. I usually talk in 3-hour blocks. That's kind of my thing, but I'm told I shouldn't do that today. So I will, on that note, pass it along. I look forward to talking with you and anyone who wants to drop by in the next session. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. All right, up next. We have Professor Leslie Regan-Shade, who's going to talk about the Critical Information Policy Studies concentration.
Hi there. Thanks. I can't, let me see, do I see myself? Can everybody see me?
Yes.
All right, you can see me. I don't look like that anymore. That's a really old picture of me. Anyway, Critical Information Policy Studies is a concentration that broadly examines the social and policy aspects of information and communication. Specific concerns in this concentration include issues of equity, inclusion, and access, digital and data literacy in an age of misinformation and disinformation, privacy and surveillance, whether this be corporate surveillance or social surveillance or government surveillance, the impacts of data and discrimination, the historical trajectory of the development of information technologies and policies, the political economy of information and communication technologies, intellectual property and how traditional knowledges are considered, informational labor, issues of equity, access, and inclusion in the tech sector, digital labor and precarity epitomized by the gig economy, and tech regulation and governance. Now, why should you study this concentration? So, I tend to be quite a big news junkie, but I'm just going to confine myself to articles that I've read in the last couple of weeks, and this morning from the New York Times. From last semester, listen to these headlines. These are all issues that we talk about in this concentration. FTC decision on pursuing Facebook antitrust case is said to be near. TikTok cracks down on QAnon and hate speech. Appeals court says Uber and Lyft must treat California drivers as employees. Activists turn facial recognition tools against the police. Why the government is suing Google. The digital divide starts with a laptop shortage. And here's just 3 articles I read this morning. Children's screen time has soared in the pandemic, alarming parents and researchers. Inside Twitter's decision to cut off Trump. WhatsApp delays, privacy changes amid user backlash. All to say, this field of SIPs is dynamic and ever so exciting, and you'll be able to interrogate many of these issues from the perspective of scholars, policymakers, and civil society advocates. Let me give you a brief sense of what I'm doing in a core course I teach. Always the first semester, fall semester each year, Inf 1001, Knowledge and Information in Society. I sort of design it as a broad survey course or as a gateway course into the other core and recommended courses. In this course, we look at historical debates about the information society, the political economy of digital tech firms, AI visions and values, the ethics of algorithms, digital literacy, digital inclusion, surveillance, digital labor, and we look at various current controversies that are updated each year. And throughout the last 2 years, it's included debates about tech humanism, technopoles and gentrification, so how a large company like Amazon has impacted different sorts of municipal areas, disinformation, misinformation, Canada's digital charter, smart city and debates over Sidewalk Toronto, data activism, surveillance capitalism, environmental impacts on data centers, and diversity in the tech sector. And the readings tend to be scholarly, but also policy focused and from critical journalism as well. The types of skills and knowledge that you can learn. One is to develop diverse research and communication writing skills. The other is thinking about different forms of knowledge mobilization about policy issues for different audiences. So it could be, crafting different sorts of policy briefs, doing scoping documents, on unpacking structures of participation in policy making, visualizations in terms of exploring and delineating complex policy issues. Why study here at U of T? You'll be able to study with faculty that are interdisciplinary. From the sciences to the humanities, the social sciences, we have faculty with expertise from computer sciences, data sciences, communication and information studies. Across the tri-campus, we have stellar scholars whose graduate home is at the Faculty of Information. So these are our colleagues at UTM's Institute of Communication, Culture, Information, and Technology, and at University of Toronto Scarborough's Department of Arts, Culture, and Media. Many of the graduates in our program work after the program in the public and the private sector in various policy contexts. Many of them have gone on to pursue doctoral work. And in the interest of time, in the breakout section, I can further discuss the core courses and links many of the SIP students have made with other our concentrations. And if there's an interest, I can talk about some of the topics of various student theses that I have supervised throughout the years that are very much SIPS-ish. So I look forward to seeing you in the breakout session.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, and I'd like to introduce Professor Andritsos, who's going to talk about the human-centered data science concentration.
Hi, everybody. Can you see me? Andrea, am I
Yes.
visible? I don't know.
Yep.
I don't use Blackboard that much. So you may see me a little bit sideways. It's the placement of my camera. So welcome, everybody. This is Pericles Andritsos. I'm a faculty member and the liaison for the Human-Centered Data Science concentration that we are describing last but not least. So this is the newest concentration that we have in the faculty. We built it and we started it a couple of years ago. So we are the concentration that deals with with the interesting stuff that we can do with data. We are approaching the concentration with some basic courses in statistics, more advanced courses in statistics, experimental design. We're looking into algorithms for data science. You can call them machine learning, data mining. I am one who teaches the introductory data analytics course. We have a more advanced course in machine learning taught by Arik Senderovitz at this point. We do discuss interesting things that happen underneath the hood where you have data. And nowadays, data is growing. Data is the new oil, some people say. And we can extract very useful information. For example, one enticing example I discussed is why do we put diapers close to beer, wherever this can be sold, in a grocery store to increase sales. I don't want to talk about more because that's part of the course, and I want to have you in my course next semester. We are planning to add more advanced courses like in natural language processing, visualization. We are hiring more faculty members to to make part of this concentration, as it's a growing one. And there are different ties within the university with different committees in life sciences, in the Vector Institute. But above all, as my colleague Leslie Shade said before, and several other people, we don't only stay at, if you want, the technical aspects, but we're looking at the ethics, we're looking at values, we're looking at what is wrong when algorithms are lopsided toward one way or another, what makes an algorithm unfair to certain populations, and so on and so forth. So what you can become a data scientist, as simple as that. You can become the CEO, the COO of startup companies. You can become a data scientist, as in a data engineer, if you have some programming background. You can be in governmental organizations, your own organization. A lot of people have started their own startups. Business analysts or data analysts in large organizations such as the banks, RBC, BMO, Air Canada has had graduates of our program. I don't have exact numbers for the HCDS or exact data, because the first cohort of the concentration is going to graduate in a few months this summer. So everything is developing and evolving nicely, and I am going to be in the breakout session in just a bit, so that I can answer more personal or more concrete questions about the concentration. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm just going to skip on back. Whoops, there we go. And finally, our last concentration is the Library and Information Science concentration, and we have Professor Hartel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Associate Professor Jenna Hartel. My sincere apologies to getting to this event late, but I'm very happy to be here and talk about library and information science. So the way I usually describe this concentration in this field is that, you know, on the one hand, we have the world of documents and literatures made up of books and journal articles and newspapers and all kinds of genres, both print and digital. And as you know, it is vast. There are billions and billions and billions of entities there growing every single day. So picture that like on one side. And then on the other side, we have society, you know, human beings who are making their way through their lives, whether they're doing work or family stuff or their leisure or their students. Everyone's just going along with the business of living. And on a regular basis, they don't have the information they need to go forward. There's some kind of gap in their knowledge, we would call it. And they turn to that documentary universe, those literatures. If only that were easy, right? If you could just Google and immediately get everything you need. I know that's a myth that it's possible, but it's really much, much more complex than that. So the field of library and information science has emerged to help people reach over into the documentary universe and find the resources that they need. So it essentially is a kind of mediating role between society and its documents, its literatures, its cultural record. And right in that middle space there, you'll find profession of librarianship, the academic discipline of library and information science, in the institution of the library. Not just one kind of library, but multiple kinds of libraries play that mediating role, from public libraries to academic libraries and college libraries to special libraries like law libraries and data libraries and libraries that are in hospitals and museums. But they all are essentially in that mediating role between people and documents. Now, right there in that middle space is where the concentration and its curriculum, its courses reside. There is a lot to learn to do that kind of mediation work. From having an understanding of the documentary universe and practices that we call like bibliographic control, which is giving every item like a street address, to classification systems, information retrieval systems, to the more human side of librarianship, which is my expertise area, what we call information behavior. It's understanding how people need, seek, and use information in their lives. So you learn things, for example, well, you'll learn about information retrieval. You'll learn about reference work, which is the actual function of answering reference questions. Reader's advisory, which is helping people find a good book. Information literacy is another kind of a name for some of the work, professional practices that we do. So maybe you're wondering, though, you know, is that concentration and that profession for me? Let me just say a couple of words about the typical library and information scientist. One is that whereas most people feel uncomfortable with a lot of information, like they like to have one favorite cookbook or one religious book like the Bible, people in library and information science like tons of it. We don't actually feel information overload. We feel comfortable within dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions, even billions of different records that lead to different documents. We're also people that have a strong social justice leanings. We're in this work to make the world a better place. We believe in a long-standing tradition of values such as intellectual freedom, that the world is a better place with the free flow of information. We believe in universal information access, that everyone should have access to information. Another quality of LIS people is called, what's the word? Intellectual compassion or something like that. And it's when people don't know something, like have a shortage of knowledge, we just can't resist helping. Like we're really, really compelled to help people who don't have the information that they need. Almost like a doctor or a medical expert has the same kind of very strong compassion for people's physical health and well-being. So I'm very happy to speak to anyone about careers and futures in library and information science, and I hope you join us in that concentration or just here at the Faculty of Information. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you all to all of our speakers. I'm just going to head right back here to the agenda. So thank you all to our faculty who gave us a great overview of all of the concentrations. Now we are going to open it up to the breakout concentration breakout rooms. So the way you access that is when you go to the event platform, you will go to the Masters of Information booth. And then in that booth, you will find the MI concentration breakout rooms, and that's where you're going to be able to access all of the specific breakout sessions. And then here you'll be able to ask more specific questions about that specific concentration and the courses and careers and so on. And so definitely feel free to join those sessions and join as many of the sessions that you are interested in learning more about. And then if you do have any questions, the Have Questions booth, you can join that session and I will be there to answer any questions that you have about admissions, careers, money matters, and so on. So feel free to stop by there as well and ask any of your general questions. And thank you all very much for attending the event. If this is the time where you're logging off, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, evening, wherever you're logging in from. And I hope you have been finding the sessions today to be helpful and enjoyable. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the sessions if you will be continuing on with us.